Welcome to the Pot.Live podcast. I'm your host, Lenny G. This podcast is all about connecting the community with the thought leaders of business and entertainment in the cannabis industry. As this industry expands and becomes more and more mainstream, we want to educate and entertain our listeners and become your choice and voice for all things cannabis. Thanks for joining us and enjoy the show. Listeners, are you looking for the only one-stop online platform in the cannabis industry? Then you have to check out MJ.com. MJ has it all. Medical and professional news and trends. Get your medical card. Over 150 free workouts for your health and fitness. VIP membership. 2 different gaming apps to win cash and prizes. Find your local dispensaries. Learn about the latest strains and search for your career in the marijuana industry. And don't forget to get your favorite lab-tested CBD products delivered straight to your front door. It's all at MJ.com. Welcome to another episode of the Pot.Live podcast. I'm your host, Lenny G, and today we have a special guest, Miss Natalie Gillespie, and she is the editor-in-chief for godsgreenery.com, which is the leading online resource for Christians to explore CBD and its natural benefits for healing. Natalie, welcome to the show.
Good morning. Thank you so much.
Awesome. So let's dive into, first of all, tell everybody, what is godsgreenery.com?
So godsgreenery.com was formed as a place for Christians to get to know, or people from a faith-based perspective to take a look at CBD, to learn the differences between, the hemp-derived cannabidiol and marijuana-based products, whether it gets you high, what are the health benefits, how would God feel about it, whether there's any moral, ethical, or spiritual dilemma here in using some of these products, just kind of all of that changing landscape of where we're seeing more natural health products, particularly cannabis-drug products, come into the market, and where those with a faith-based lens can join into that, either participation or at least dialogue.
Basically, you have the site is, describe the site for the listeners out there that haven't seen it yet. And then obviously we'll put that website in the show notes so they can go take a view themselves. But tell them what they'll find when they go to the website.
Absolutely. When you go to godsgreenery.com, you'll see several categories up at the top. We're really trying to be educational on all sides. For example, we look at church and lifestyle, health and beauty. You'll see scripture and commentary, and also real stories, which is one of my favorites, where you really tell some personal testimonies of people who have found relief from all kinds of ailments or just really seeing changes in their life through the use of CBD, and rules and regulations, so that when you are approaching CBD for the first time, you can learn not only the science of it, not only what it may do in your body, but also what are the legalities of it. And then that extra piece that I think you can get only on God's Greenery, I haven't seen it anywhere else, is considering that we're not just body, mind, and emotions, but that we might be body, mind, and spirit. And if you are concerned with that spiritual side of yourself, where CBD fits in that. What does it mention in the Bible about healing? What are we supposed to do with our bodies? How do we treat them, in light of God's kingdom? What does he say about the plants and the herbs and the spices and the oils that he's given us? So we really get a chance to kind of dive in and marry the two, both your faith and then also your wellness journey.
Can you give the listeners some examples of, some scripture items that maybe fit into what you just said?
Absolutely. I really took a look at, when in 1 Thessalonians 5, there's a verse that talks about honoring God with your body. So that, what does that mean? What does that look like? And so when we look back at scriptures, then you go all the way back to Genesis 1, when God created the earth. He specifically looked at everything that he made and declared it good. And then he gave the caregiving and the care and keeping of plants and animals to the first man and woman that he made, Adam and Eve. And when he looked at all of that, he said that it was good. He said, I give you every seed-bearing plant for food. And he said, it's all good. Now, anything I would say in this life to excess, if you're going to pull extracts from things for recreational use to alter your personality, to lower your inhibitions, to mask maybe some pain, cover it up. We know that substance use can sometimes lead to addiction. If you're going to use it in any way that would keep you from either fulfilling your passion and your purpose that God made you for, take you out of your natural state that he created you to be in, or mask something that you should be dealing with in another way. I think that would be where Christians would fall on the side of saying that's taking something God gave us and not using it correctly. But if the plants itself are good and can be used either for nourishment, for healing, then I think the Bible tells us that very clearly is permissible, is allowable.
So even if you're not, strictly a Christian, if you're just any faith-based or spiritual person, you can get value from the website.
I think you can learn a lot from godsgreenery.com, even if you're not faith-based. And that's been one of the most fascinating parts of this journey for me as editor, is that I knew when I took on this project that I was trying to educate faith-based people about CBD, because there wasn't a lot of knowledge a year ago widely on a consumer basis, although people were starting to find it and buy it, and you were certainly seeing CBD products pop up everywhere. And even today, there's still great confusion on, does it get you high? That's the first question. I think every new person that's hearing about CBD for the first time wants to know, well, what does it make me feel? What does it do? And secondly, is it legal? So once you clear a lot of that up, and you can find that on a lot of sites, the difference here, in addition to educating faith-based people about the cannabis world, I've been really fascinated by the amount of non-faith-based people interested in taking a look at that piece. I've been introducing sort of the cannabis world to faith. So I love the bridge. I love that we're kind of creating this community. We're creating conversation and all learning together.
Yeah, I haven't seen another site that focuses on the niche that you're focused on. So let's back up and talk about you and your journey. How long have you been involved in the cannabis, hemp, CBD industry? Is this something new for you? Where do you come from? Give us a little sense of where you came from and how you got to this point.
Okay, it is, the cannabis space is something new for me with God's Greenery. I've been with godsgreenery.com for almost a year now, and it has really, I think that I was brought on. I have been writing in the Christian space for almost 25 years. I'm an author and editor, journalist, have written or co-authored about a dozen books in the Christian space, a lot of Christian living nonfiction titles. I also have published more than 2,500 articles in the last 25 years. So I'm very, very familiar in that space. On the CBD side, I got to go along on the same educational journey as my audience. I got to really dive in as an investigative journalist and learn the science and go back to the original studies and make sure I read them completely, and then kind of held those up in one hand and my scriptures in the other hand and said, where do they meet? Where do they diverge? What can we say about all of this? And talk to some pastors, some lay people, some doctors, just really get to build community and be part of that community myself.
Are you trying to build with godsgreenery.com? Are you just trying to be an educational and community platform? Is it something that you're going to generate a revenue model in the future? Tell everybody, the business plan, I guess, for our business owners out there.
Yeah, at this point, godsgreenery.com was created as sort of a thoughtful community to be an investigative site, to be an educational site. It is independent. It's not tied to any particular product line or hemp company. I can't tell you that we won't introduce products in the future, but I do not know at this point of that coming on board and coming online. Right now, we are just focusing on kind of getting this community familiar in the CBD space and learning together.
How do you obtain the content? Is it written by in-house staff or yourself, or do you get it from outside sources and link to them? How is the content derived?
No, it's all originally created and curated. So either I hire writers or I write a lot of it myself. So that we do have, I have a lot of folks that are good enough to contribute, and I help contribute a little bit to their bottom line by contributing to the site. But again, yeah, each piece is original, and I do take a look at all of it and just kind of give it that flavor, make sure that God's Greenery is developing its own voice. And I really love the warmth there. I love the stories that we've been discovering together. And it's a fascinating journey.
And I know that you had a daughter with some health issues and used CBD product in the past. What was your experience there?
Well, my daughter has cerebral palsy, and seizure disorder. She's only had 2 seizures in the 9 years since she's been home with us from China. We adopted her and her twin when they were 5 years old, and she is now 14 and just an absolute delight. But we know that the prescribed seizure medicine that she's been on is for this 9 years because of those seizures, even though she only had the 2, both times she stopped breathing, and they do usually happen at night. So it's important for her because cerebral palsy can cause the brain to generate abnormal electrical activity kind of out of the blue to continue something for seizure prevention. And that medicine will affect her liver in the long term. So it's a trade-off. We knew that pharmaceutical was important for her for life. And yet, on the other hand, it's going to come with a cost. And as we went on this CBD journey, we've explored more and more the possibility that CBD could be maybe the alternative instead of her prescribed medicines, but actually we have not made that jump yet. Instead, my husband and I began using it first, and we've been talking to her PCP, and we actually have an appointment in November, so we're going to see if that's the right step for her.
Oh, great. Well, I'm glad she's doing okay. That's good. So tell us from a Christian point of view or from your point of view, what's your overall, let's talk about just the cannabis industry, whether it's medically legal in certain states, obviously recreational in certain states. And eventually, I think we all probably agree that it's going to be legal everywhere at some point in the future. What is the Christian opinion or your opinion on recreational legality versus medical legality or both?
Well, it was interesting because I went out this July to the Los Angeles area for a television interview for God's Greenery. And when I was driving down the airport, I can't remember what road it was, Cienega Boulevard, one of the boulevards right by the airport, there was a huge billboard on the top of the Hilton, and it said, "Welcome to the new normal." And all it was this red background with a bright white marijuana leaf right in the center. And on the bottom was that block font said, "Welcome to the new normal." And I thought it was such clever marketing because you have that red, there was not a speck of green on the billboard, red background, which is a bold, warm, power, take action color with a white leaf symbolizing truth, purity, this is okay. And then that familiar, almost newspaper type font at the bottom to also then communicate that this is an authoritative voice, just welcome to the new normal. And I thought, yeah, that's so true. And as Christians, wherever you stand on the issue of, do you think it should be recreational? Do you think it should be medicinal? Do you think it's from the devil himself? If we don't get educated and we don't become part of the conversation, then we don't get a seat at the table with our viewpoint. We don't, Jesus doesn't get a seat at the table, in my opinion. It'd be like throwing out rock and roll or, the controversy over Harry Potter or wherever you want to take a stance. If you just say, nope, I'm turning my head, it's absolutely awful, and I'm not going to talk to you about it, then you are seen as that narrow judgmental person, and your intelligence doesn't get to come along with you. So I think that Christians, first of all, need to be really educated and need to be considering this and taking it seriously. As far as the voice that God's Greenery has been developing, and probably where my personal stance is that I'm learning more and more how much my belief in medicine sort of got infiltrated, I think, as a Western American Christian into my gospel, in that I was raised with big pharma. We all were. We were raised altering our foods, and we've been raised that technology is improving us. And I think the older we get, the more we're learning that all of these man-made things are having some real dire consequences in the end, that maybe the way that God created it originally is better for us. The crops that we plant, the air that we breathe, the water that we drink, and even the plants that he gave us for use, that the medicinal properties of them more directly, if you're were one of those sailors back in the frontier days when they were coming over to find the new world and they were all dying of scurvy, vitamin C was what they needed. And today, we can get our vitamin C in a pill, but might it not be better to get those flavonoids and those terpenes as well as the vitamin C and just eat some more oranges? I think we're figuring out that it's time to take a real hard look at things, even cannabis, that were created naturally, and seeing if perhaps using some of those properties to heal directly from what was created is better for us than what has been put in a pill. So that's the first thing I think that we need, the first part of the journey. I touched on it earlier, but I think there are lots of verses in the New Testament, about a half a dozen of them, that reference being sober or being sober-minded. And I went back to the original Greek and looked at that word sober. And it does mean thoughtful, but it also literally meant sober from intoxicants. So if we take a look at that, then I think using marijuana recreationally, legal or not, comes with a real warning label for Christians. Because if it does change you, even temporarily, from, I don't know, your sober cognitive state, if it lowers inhibitions to a point where you would do something you wouldn't do normally, if it even just saps your motivation or your drive, or if it becomes a stumbling block for you in your life in any way, then recreational use would not be for Christians, for the most part, I believe. If it is truly healing something in you, if you suffer from debilitating anxiety that the Lord is not, through prayer, through counsel, through that you have not been able to find any relief from, and it would actually help you medicinally to the point that where you could then participate in life better and be more of the person that God created you to be, then perhaps that's a different story. So I think individually you have to see where your prayer journey is, where your faith journey is, and where your medical journey goes.
Yeah, I think you covered, what a lot of the mainstream thinks about the industry. And I think you also covered, obviously what the Christian and faith-based people think. So thank you for sharing that. So before we finish up, usually we finish up with what's something in the cannabis industry or, CBD, whatever you want to term it, in the industry, what's something that excites you and what's something that concerns you, even though you may have touched a little bit on both of those already.
Okay. What excites me is the stories I hear of people who couldn't find relief through pharmaceuticals, whether it was an older lady in Oklahoma who had almost become agoraphobic, was unable to leave her house because her psoriasis was so red and flaky and ugly that people could see it all over her and she wouldn't even go to Walmart, who had tried everything her doctor told her to take and had found nothing that worked, who was talking to a friend and a friend suggested a CBD topical and she used it for 3 weeks and also started the tinctures and her skin cleared up. And she's not only had the benefit of not having that painful, itchy, embarrassing skin, but she's gotten her life back. A mom here in Florida who has an autistic child who was nonverbal and really behaviorally was out of control, who began using CBD. And not only was her child able to calm and kind of plug into the family some, but she's gained some language. She's been able to talk some. It's just kind of cleared up whatever was going on in her little overactive mind. So those stories excite me. The stories of people finding true mental, emotional, physical health benefit and what that might do in our bodies. What concerns me is that we are outpacing common sense in some ways in terms of products, and that you don't know, where you're buying, what you're buying, because cannabis is a bioaccumulating plant, meaning it likes to soak up anything out of the ground that it's planted in. You don't want those extras like heavy metals if it was grown, maybe somewhere in a field in Mexico, or pesticides in some of the unregulated places in there as well. And also you don't want to be buying product that's snake oil that doesn't have any CBD in it whatsoever. So I think in the kind of wild west of CBD, that concerns me, that we really do get solid independent third-party lab testing that we can read, that we can understand, and that we know the product that we're getting has what it's supposed to have and doesn't have what it's not supposed to have.
Yeah, I think you summarized it perfectly. The health benefit stories that you hear and people that have used this plant in some variety that have helped them, it's almost like a miracle plant. And it's so great to see. And doing these interviews, I love to hear all those different stories and testimonials. Then there's some people that it just does nothing for. So that's what's the enigma about the plant and what makes it so fascinating. And like you said, once regulation comes into effect in some form, then people will know that what they're buying is actually real. And right now it sure is the Wild West with all the different brands and products out there and people trying to get educated on it. It's really difficult to know what you're putting in your body. So yeah, you summarized that perfectly. So Natalie Gillespie, editor-in-chief of godsgreenery.com. Thank you so much for being a guest on the Pot.Live podcast.
Thank you so much for having me. I hope you have an awesome day.
Thank you. You too. And we'll see you all next time. Are you ready to be a VIP? Well, Culture Club is ready to bring you thousands of dollars in exclusive deals with the touch of a finger. Simply visit cultureclubusa.com, sign up, and you will get immediate access to dozens of CBD products, services, vacation rentals, over 1,800 vacation rentals, sports gear for all the top pro leagues, all of them, and educational courses. And check this out, a free $100 gift as soon as you sign up. Culture Club is basically paying you to become a member. It's a no-brainer. Go to cultureclubusa.com and become a VIP today.